Unlock the full potential with your business with Leadershipity. Our proven strategies have fueled growth for countless organizations. Ready to elevate your leadership and scale your success? Book your free 15-minute consultation now. Click the link in the show notes below and let's make your business soar. Hello and welcome to the Winners Find a Way show. I am your host, Trent Clark, longtime serial entrepreneur, an international speaker, and most people know me because I spent over 13 years in professional baseball coaching in 3 World Series. And today I welcome my good buddy, Andy Shirk, to the show. What's up, Andy?
Hey, Trent, how's it going?
Man, it's going better than it should. You know,
Good.
like it's good. Excited about always Fridays, you know, do the show, get rolling, and it rolls us right into the weekend. So I love that. So thrilled to have you aboard, man. I mean, Andy, definitely for those out listening for the first time, Winners Find a Way is a show all about the 1%ers, people who come on, who have done some things in their life, have been involved with a lot of different avenues, different experiences. But what most people recognize is that the 1% have gone through some things and they've gone through challenges and things they've had to overcome in their lifetime. And Andy, you're no different. I want to meet Andy Shirk a little bit here. He is a entrepreneur. He's from a significant family of entrepreneurs, having his grandfather who founded Beer Nutz, which I love, by the way.
Thank you.
A lot of people know that brand, and you were the president of Beer Nutz for a long time. And being a member of the family, your family is spread through Illinois. I see the Shirk thing on Illinois Wesleyan, and man, the Shirk name is just synonymous with entrepreneurship in central Illinois for sure. But of course, with Beer Nutz being a global brand, I don't know if everyone knows the Shirks are Beer Nutz, but that is a global brand.
Yeah, we like to hide behind it and stay under the radar if we can.
Yeah, well, you're doing a pretty good job. Minus, you know, maybe central Illinois where the Shirk family comes out pretty good. Like I don't know if you're hiding in, you know, the name on the rec center of the Illinois Wesleyan is a pretty nice spot. And so, but for you, you know, you grew up in this entrepreneurial environment, Miami, Ohio kid, which is, you know, the Harvard of the Midwest, right? And so talk to us a little bit about the experience. Did you think like as a high school kid that this is going to be my life? Like, hey man, I'm going to go build my grandfather's company, even build it better? Or did you want to do your own thing? Or what were you thinking at that age as you headed off to university?
I was thinking I'll never be back. So I actually went to boarding school for 2 years before I went to college. And I was thinking, you know, I'm interested in business. I want to go do something, but I don't think it'll be here. And I don't think I'll be slinging peanuts or selling peanuts. But yeah, so I was pretty set on a real estate career coming out of college, which I did pursue. But 2008 got the best of it as I was selling shopping centers and the debt market dried up. But yeah, so growing up though, there was no expectation to join the family business and it wasn't talked about a ton, which I think was great to a degree. But then as 2008 kind of rolled around, my dad said, hey, why don't you come help me out? And so that's kind of when I got back involved.
Nice.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that obviously your business experience has been significant. You've been a YPO, Young Presidents Organization member for now over 8 years, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, for people that don't know, the Young Presidents Organization is a organization of the top 2% in business. These are entrepreneurs who have created massive value. It's also presidents of companies, and they are leading these companies that definitely fall into the top 2% in annual revenue of all companies in North America and worldwide. And so it is a unique group of just, you know, I would equate that, Andy, to a group that's very similar to the professional baseball group. When you've kind of arrived at that pinnacle of people that have created value, or you're so excellent at something and leading something, and then you get involved with a bunch of other people that are doing it. Now, in baseball, we were doing it together as a team, right? It's these 1%ers who are all very gifted, and now you've got to come together. In YPO, you don't have to come together, but the hyper learning is still there, right? You're all learning together. Like everyone has a vested interest in getting themselves and their organization better. Walk me through some of the excellent experiences, learnings that you've had inside that.
Yeah. So I'd say at the sort of national or industry level, I got heavily into the e-commerce side of it through peer learning events, which were being held all over the place. But that was really probably my best exposure to date in just getting in a room with, 20 other people who were, some have figured it out, some haven't, and some are somewhere in between, sharing ideas, sharing contacts, best practice, how-tos, building business plans, things like that over the course of, an afternoon or a day and a half. and then having, speakers come in that were, the leaders of the best companies to give us half an hour to an hour and let us know what's coming. So it's just a unique way to learn, and from people who've done it, the people who are in it, and then have that group to bounce things off of going forward. So yeah, it's a fantastic organization, 30,000 plus members globally, 9 to 10 trillion in revenue. So it's a big group, but there's a certain characteristic where we all have a certain level of understanding of each other, and people really get direct really quick on how can I help you, which is fantastic.
Yeah. Man, when you talk about that 9 trillion, right? The impact that this organization is having globally is significant. And while sizable, oftentimes these are not the companies that are getting back political money, like this. Right. This is still relatively small, mid-sized business. I mean, this is middle market. A lot of times there are some billionaire companies, no doubt, but that's not the standard. Right. And so it's still individual focused. It's still chairmans of the board. It's still and YPO is primarily still very active people running their businesses and companies. Right. So there's really not that chairman status until after 55. I think when people go to YPO Gold, what used to be called World Presidents Organization, and which is just a phenomenal transition group. So that's amazing. Yep. So this has always been done very well. And, one of the things that to be successful in that environment, it's not easy. A couple things come to mind. One is, boy, the imposter syndrome is rough. Like, because, just like pro sports, you think like, man, I'm pretty good. And then you watch someone go take BP and you're like, holy crap, the ball's never come off my bat like that in my life. Like, who's this dude? And what is that about? Right. And so you're like, maybe I'm not worthy to be here. And you got to really watch that. Right. So I'd love to speak to that first. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting because, walking into the room, a lot of times I'm always nervous. Like, what do I know? Who do I know? Like, what am I going to learn? And it doesn't take long until you're comfortable and learning from the best and everybody in the room. So but there's always that sort of fear factor I have of, am I good enough? Am I qualified? And soon after, the confidence is there and you're like, oh yeah, okay, I fit in here. And, but every time I feel like I have to readdress that every time I walk into a YPO event or with YPOers. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's legitimate. And I think that as we talk about this in pro sports, and everyone knows there's a little ego involved in pro sports, right? Sure. Like, yes, I mean, people shows up. I could make an argument versus, confidence versus arrogance. Sure. And I think there's some legitimacy there. What I will say is when you do come together all together in a room, and you see it at the All-Star games and things like that, like everybody kind of checks their ego at the door, like, because you recognize like there's always somebody better. I mean, I don't care how good you are. There's always somebody better. And, this is one of the things I love about tennis, right? Like there is somebody ranked number 1 in the world, like golf, it's like, man, like, this is like, I'm the best player in the world this week. Today. Because next week's not guaranteed. Right. And, and I think that is probably one of the things I saw that was so powerful about the hyper learning environment, that reset and that willingness to check the ego at the door. I'm going in there with a bunch of other world beaters and I'm just going to go learn as much as I can because, why would I be judging whether, they've got more sales than I do, whether they've got a bigger building, like, what is it? What are we comparing? Like, it doesn't matter. We're all coming in the end to the same thing, which is really to better ourselves and to better our organizations for all these people that impact.
Yeah. And to qualify for selling peanuts, I come in pretty low. I say you gotta sell a lot of peanuts to make $1. But there's just this, it's something about the culture of the group that lends itself and maybe the forum training to experience sharing and adding value first. And where I lack the confidence at times is am I bringing anything to the table? And I, typically almost always that I have something to help someone and I'm getting plenty in return. So it's awesome organization and plenty of great experiences and super valuable experiences are had as a result of it.
Well, I think one of the things that's probably you've been encouraged along the way as a very successful business person, as a very successful company and president, is you've been involved with a lot of philanthropy. And so people that have impact in this world find themselves like, hey, I can take my skills to other organizations and be a part of your foundation is incredible. You guys have done just amazing work inside the Shirk Family Foundation. And man, I think it's really admirable, but that's a whole nother set of skills right there of like, hey, how do we create value and sustainable value, right? Like not the, hey, we did something really awesome last year. are you doing it again this year? Oh, I don't think we're going to have the money. Wait a minute, I thought this was going to be a program, right? Like, and I see a lot of organizations that don't do it well. Very good-hearted, definitely motivated, intentional in the right area, but they don't have that business acumen to build something sustainable. Have you seen that?
Yeah. What that makes me think about is just in my experience of sort of hitting ceilings within the family business and really pushing outside of it to things we sort of talked about in preparation of just getting involved in the Economic Development Council and city government and things like that, just because I want to be, I want to be a lifelong learner, and I've seen where that fails. And so when people aren't lifelong learners, and so I'm just trying to always continue to grow my experiences and my understanding and my learning, and constantly be challenging my position so that I'm not stuck and then become irrelevant. So yeah, it just sort of, I like to just continue to push and grow and get outside of just where I am and keep growing. So
yeah. Well, and there's a trait, folks, that you're hearing right there. Like, here's the 2% of the world. The top 1% have always come out, and everyone talks about the same thing. And the fact, like, I continue to learn. And I can think about people who are like, oh my gosh. And I don't know if you knew friends like this who are like, oh my gosh, man, one semester to go, and I'm never opening a book again in my whole life, man. Yeah. College sucks. I'm done learning. And you're like, and I think about like the technology kids, right? All the kids that are coming in and going, man, I'm starting my freshman year. Everything I learned in my first 2 years will probably be old and outdated by the time I graduate, which is mean I'll spend my whole first 2 years on the job learning something new, because whatever I learned programming will probably be obsolete.
Sounds like a broken system.
Yeah, right. Like, I don't know how we're going to do this. Well, and this is probably my biggest challenge. And like I said, you went to a very difficult school to get into. Miami, Ohio is a really special place in Oxford, Ohio. I was just there recently for a hockey tournament for one of my children, and it's just a historic, space of learning. And I am completely frustrated in our entire environment when we look at the learning and retention scope of how we learn. And our lowest level of retaining is lecture and watching something. And our entire university system is built on it, right? Like, why are we not out activity? Why aren't we getting out into these experiences and going out and teaching it to other people where we get all these levels of retention? Like, it's crazy to me.
That's what Miami's done well. In going back, it's been 20 years since I graduated, but 20 years ago.
Sorry, I was dating you there, right? I'm sorry about that, bro.
Yeah.
Feels like yesterday.
Yeah, it does. I had a entrepreneurship class, and that got me into an entrepreneurship club. And then I ended up buying a business with a couple other guys from the club, and having that hands-on experience for my midway through my sophomore year through my graduation when we sold it. So, it's a hands-on learning environment. And I think that's why it pumps out so many successful people, especially I think there's number 3 in Fortune 500 CEOs is one of the facts that you hear, in top 10 entrepreneurship program for decades now. And it's just amazing. It's a good place, and it's under the radar a little bit, which is awesome. But besides being a good place and good education and good social atmosphere, it's a beautiful campus too. So
it really is special. I mean, when you're on campus, it definitely feels unique. And obviously the success is clear because a lot of people have given back to the university about their experience. And, and I think that's so powerful, right? As you talk about, like, man, I got an entrepreneur and we got involved buying a business. Like, if I think about that time, like, I don't recall a bunch of the X's and O's and testing of my classes. But at that age, I remember everything that was going on in my businesses, man. Like, at 20 years old, I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to sell this thing. Or I was like, I'm not going to be able to like pay the rent on this place. Like, there was pressure and there was all these things. And I'm like, going to class, whatever, that's easy, man. Like, and so my learnings were really coming from those environments. And which is why, it's the one thing I love about, college athletics and NIL now, that the kids can actually be an entrepreneur and go make money on their name, image, and likeness. Like, the value of those skills that those kids are going to learn are far going to outweigh whatever they get in their practices, whatever they get in their classes. They're going to walk away, especially the kids who put their time and effort into it. Like, I just think kids
make mistakes too. What a good realm to let's learn the business and also sort of mess up and have some lifelong lessons before you have any dependence or some real requirements for your capital. So
well, let's speak about dependence. You got a wife now, you got 4 children, 4 lovely little girls, right?
Yep.
All under the age of 11.
Yep. 11, 9, almost 7, and almost 3. COVID surprised.
trying to stay busy.
Yep.
Yeah, trying to stay busy, man.
Don't do a lot of
Like
work
the
done at
Shirks,
home.
like, we were a little bored at home, so the Shirks were
Yeah.
just like, hey, we got to keep it busy around here. So always been in Bloomington?
No. So went away to Pennsylvania for boarding school after 10th grade at the Mercersburg Academy. After that, Miami, so Oxford, Ohio. Then I made it back here for a week before I moved to Chicago. After graduation, got commercial real estate, was doing that for about 4 years, and then stayed in Chicago, but commuted down for about 3 years until we got married in 2011. And then we moved shortly thereafter. So as I was getting deeper and deeper into Beer Nutz, but yeah, so a lifer, but I got away for, I think it was a total of like 13 years, but now I feel like to a degree I never left. But
is that a tagline? Get deeper and deeper into Beer Nutz? Is that like a tagline? Because like, if it's not, it should be.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there's some good ones there. Yeah.
Yeah. It's such a unique, iconic brand. And it's funny, man. Like, I don't know what people think, but almost every one of my friends who would know that brand immediately by the label, by the flavor, like everything, like people know. And it's not egregious, right? It's just not out there all the time. But if you go to a restaurant, if you go to bars, now for me, I spent a lot of my life in pro sports, right? So that means you go to what's open at 11:30 midnight to go get food, right? I got to go to a bar, right?
Yeah.
So maybe I know Beer Nutz because of that, but most of my circles have been in there, and it's a real brand that stood time, and it's really cool. I'm sure fun to be a part of.
Yeah, it was a good run. There's a whole story why I'm not there anymore, but that'll happily share. But yeah, it's a fun brand and it's a fun product. And I think, there's a ton of opportunity for it going forward. It's like 71 years old this year. So, but there's plenty of family business dynamics, I think, holding back the opportunity. So, but yeah.
Man, you've wrangled up all these experiences, real estate, this family business, you've been a president, you've been a founder, you've been all sorts of different roles. Now you're pivoting into the coaching role, which I love, by the way. Obviously, as a coach, I love that. Like, I love people who want to give back and go, man, I've got all these learnings and I can walk these executive teams into building better teams. My book is Leading Winning Teams. Like that's what we're trying to do, right? Is really get the right players and get them in the right seats. So, but then even when you do that, what I've found, Andy, is that nobody went to college for leadership and no one went to college for coaching. And all of a sudden it's like, are you going to run this organization? We really need to see these leadership behaviors and you're going to have to coach a lot of people.
It's going to take a lot of time.
Yeah. And then it's deer in the headlights. Like, I don't know if I have those skills. And some of those are innate,
maybe
right?
do that.
Yeah. Or I don't know if I love that. Like, do I want to really be coaching? Like, I can't even coach myself up right now. Like, so should I be coaching other people? So tell me how your road kind of traversed into this and, how you feel about it. Are you loving it? Like, tell me a little bit about you and your stance in this.
Yeah. So the short story on getting here is, so I left Beer Nutz because family business, father wouldn't sell it. After gave evaluation, I offered what he asked for and he said no. So that was unfortunately a 5-year process. But in that time, I got to know a guy named Todd Smart who helped us implement EOS at Beer Nutz. And as I told him, hey, I'm leaving on a call, and he said, hey, we're launching this coaching practice. I'd love for you to consider it. And so I kind of went through the application process and got accepted and went to the first training and I'm off and running. So I remember back to when I first discovered an operating system for the business and how much I had struggled in trying to figure out how do we make things happen quicker and faster. I'm not very good at holding people accountable. How do we do that better? And once I found that, if I wasn't going to implement it at that point 5 years ago, I was probably going to help others. And thankfully we implemented it and had that experience, which has been incredible and made me a better coach of it now. And so I'm coaching in the Bloom growth system, and it's a ton of fun to help these teams that you see doing well and doing great, but like knowing that there's a better way or a more efficient way to grow their business and grow their people and grow as an individual. And so it's just a blast helping them make those steps and watch their business grow and watch them achieve the goals that they wanted faster than they expected. So yeah, it's a ton of fun. It's great for my clients and having fun building the practice. So
I love it, man. This is where you and my paths really cross, right? I'm also obviously a friend of Todd Smart's. He and I go back about, I don't know, like maybe 12 years now. And Todd was really sharp, really loved the way he was developing his coaching business himself and a really thoughtful entrepreneur. And so like-minded, as I was coaching, I'm like, man, once the operating systems I've put into my businesses have been functional. The businesses really need me a lot less, right?
Right.
And I'm like, man, this is like, I love these repeatable systems. So I was starting to overlay these business systems that I was investing in. So I'm like, hey, I'll only invest in your brand and your group if we overlay this system, because it gives me visibility on what's happening, right? And so I can decipher exactly based on that data that we're pulling from the software from Bloom, which is so important. Walk me through, and I love this from your coaching perspective. Like, I think admittedly, what you just said was, hey man, I wasn't a coach, man. Like all this accountability and all that. Like, hey, am I doing that well? Could I be doing that better? And so when you overlay that operating system, what happens at Beer Nutz in that time for you? Like what did you see the significant differences of where you guys were? Because you knew where you wanted to go. You were like, hey, I'm making an offer. I want to take this thing to the next level. You hire a coach, because the best in the world have a coach. So you hire Todd, who's a really good one. He's built a lot of EBITDA for a lot of companies. He's helped them scale up. And so we've done that now a lot ourselves. What happened at Beer Nutz? What was the influence of you making those moves? Like from the moment you started for like the next 36 months, what happened?
That's good. That's a good time frame, because I think it's about 36 months where we got a lot of the right people in the right seats and just really saw the progress we're making internally accelerate. I will mention we did have an ownership pushback, which sort of, as we were off and running and going and had all this, everything lining up, and for a transition in ownership, when ownership said no, it sort of really pushed out a lot of people because they were growing so fast, and that growth kind of stopped. And thankfully they went on to do great things at other places. But to that point, like we were, everybody was getting aligned. And if you weren't, you were finding other opportunities, and we were bringing in good people, and we were finding tools to help us identify good people. And everybody, the culture was strong, and people were happy, and things were going well, and it trickled down to the bottom line, which was great. So yeah, things just start going faster. And after 10 years of feeling like I was, going slow and just frustrated with a ton of things, all of a sudden I was like, we can fly, and I can see us get to our big goal pretty quick. So and when you see that, because you say trickle down productivity. When I work with groups, there's no trickling, man. There is like you said, I'm seeing major changes in the culture. I see the creation of winning teams, which is a big deal. Because everyone tells me they have a great team, which is total lies, right? Like we can't all have a great team. And so they've already accomplished. They don't have it for for what they want to accomplish.
That's right. Right. So when you have a great team and you have a winning team, the culture's there because everyone feels a part of it. They feel like they're contributing to that productivity, which of course in my world, like it's like the gas meter in the winter, man. That thing just starts turning and you're like going, whoa, man, we are really starting to cook with Crisco here, bro. Like this thing's really coming on. And the fun thing is like, we got the tiger by the tail. We got to manage this thing now, right? And so there's always challenges and growth, but it's good challenge. What I will say, I'd like you to speak to is talk to me about the culture, because as we know, fast growth is stressful. It's challenging. There are casualties, but people love the demand. They love being challenged. They love being a part of a winning organization, even though it's A, hard, and B, not everybody can make it.
Right.
And
I'd say it's not for everybody.
It's not.
But I think a winning company that's growing attracts better people, out of who's available. It's easier to pull good talent from somewhere else when you've got a clear path and you're showing your progress, and people say, I want to be on that, I want to be on that bus, or I want to be on that train to go to the next level. So
well, and I think it's palpable.
One thing you made me think of was, what else happened in that time frame of those 36 months is that all of a sudden my responsibilities, I in the 36 months, I moved from the sort of integrator role to a visionary role. And all of a sudden I could spend more time coaching within the organization and really helping specific problems that I'd sort of been addressing from afar. I could get into it because I freed up my time, and that's where my time was best spent and where I enjoyed it the most. And so I was able to get into really having fun in the business. So,
Well, I think it's so interesting because like when you talk about recruiting, when you go into and I'm going to use the sports analogy, right? When
Yep.
you go into an Alabama or
Yep.
when I was at Michigan State with a Nick Saban, man, when the recruits came in, it was red carpet, right? Like check this place out. And Michigan State is an unbelievable campus.
Yep.
Now they've got all these, facilities to help the athletes get to that next level. We're showcasing the strength and conditioning, the study labs, the technology available to you, the tutoring, and then the training that we're offering you, video, all these things. Because if you want to play at the next level, the opportunity's here. And you're also meeting Big Ten champions. You're meeting people that carry themselves in a different way, which is a very different feel when you walk on the last place team in the MAC. And everyone's like, yeah, I don't know. I signed here a few years ago. I don't know if I'm going to play this year or not. It's kind of like not the same. Like, but the culture is palpable, right? Like you can feel. And if you're that person who's like, wow, like look at this person, and you see people walking around and going, wow, I've never seen a person who looks like that. Like that is special. And and you start seeing the way the championship banners hung in the rafters and out and the sponsors that are involved in the teams that say, hey, I want to be attached to a winner. And you're like going, man, this is an environment I want to be a part of. Talk to me about the palpable difference of when you come into and I'm not downplaying Beer Nutz, by the way. It's a great organization, but like this is now when you come in at like 60 years into the business, right? And then you do a turnaround over 8 years of like, we're going to change the way we grow and develop this thing, because in all reality, Beer Nutz could be 4x of what it is right now. And you're kind of driving for that. Like, I'm going to make a purchase, build it up, create even greater value in this. And so as you start seeing this after 36 months, tell me about tell me the discrepancy, the gap, right? Show me the gap between when you come in to the old guard. And I'm not knocking that, right? It's just the way things were done to like, hey, I got to take this thing up to this next level. And you do that and how that felt 8 years later.
Yeah. And so from when I came in to 8 years later, I'm thinking it seemed like triage the first 3 years or 4 years, and just sort of putting out fires and stabilizing the company so that we could grow. And then, but after I'd say about 8 years, I was hitting ceilings everywhere with ownership saying, we don't want to do that or this. And I'm thinking, why not? This is going to, help grow the business, help the bottom line. Yeah. But there just wasn't an appetite for investment in the business. And so that's when I sort of got super frustrated and got to all right, let's go and try an operating system. And then all of a sudden that 8 years, I was like, wow, I wish I had this 8 years ago, because we could be way ahead of where we are today. So just
I'm a growth guy, man. Like, so if you didn't have the growth, you were going to be like, hey man, like if I don't have the growth, I don't know what I'm doing here. Like, right. Yeah, because that's what your bailiwick was.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was, I thought I was decent at fixing what our problems were, but my ambition was dramatic. I wanted the company to be what I say everybody thought it was already. And so I was heading that direction, and there just, in the end, wasn't an appetite for it. And
that's discouraging, right? That's discouraging. Incredibly. So yeah, but I think this is so. Let me describe that, and I just want to see if you agree with that. You spend our first 3 years, and for people that are out there with an organization, I want you to listen hard on this, because playing the game from a reactive standpoint is what I call being a fireman. Or, you're going to play the game of like, hey, every morning I'm going to wake up, I'm going to slide down the pole, the alarms are going to go off, I'm going to throw the boots on, we're going to get in the truck, and I'm going to fire up that hose, man. We're going to spread some water and put out some stuff, right? And it's a reactive. To now fast forward 8 years, you're making a purchase and you have a proactive environment. You've moved into a visionary role. Like, we're actually seeing what's coming next. I know what's coming. And I've got the people who are actually planning it. So my fires are different fires. I still have them, but they're no 5 alarmers anymore. No, these are now choices of like, hey, do we want to take on that? Because, a fire at a camp sounds really good. Let's get some marshmallows. I like that kind of fire. Let's light some stuff up and, let's get some s'mores going, because this thing could be a lot of fun, and let's light this thing.
Yeah.
As opposed to let's light the boiler and heat this place up. Those are good fires to have. But man, when the kitchen's got a grease fire going and you're like going, man, whole thing could go up in flames on a gas line here.
Right.
No fun.
Yeah. It was really, going from defense to offense. And that was I wanted to be on offense. And the business had been on defense probably since 1980 when there was a big drought. So for the peanut crop, and that's what we did. We got on offense and we started growing. And so, you need to have defense, but I want to be the striker. I want to be on offense. I want to be pushing things forward, and I want my team to really be supporting it and doing the things I don't do well to enable that success. So,
yeah, and I appreciate that. Let's dive into one of those challenges you face. You face a lot of challenges in business. I mean, obviously, this is a significant one. I mean, get into a position discouraged. For a lot of folks are facing tough things right now, right? And what would you, first of all, what would be a story, one of the things you're most proud of that you've overcome in your life, a significant challenge that you faced and thought like, man, this is the epitome of winners when shown data that they are losing, find a way to win. Because, hey man, it's simple, but it's not always easy, right?
Yeah.
And so we run up against these things and we're like, man, this is not going. I've been down the road on a couple things and I'm like, hey, we'll go under. That didn't work. We'll go over, not getting over it. We'll go around it. And so you keep trying to figure that out, right?
Yeah.
Of like, hey, how am I going to do it? Walk me through one of those examples in your life, Andy.
Yeah, that's tough. I talk about this every once in a while, and I actually talked about it this week and how one of the bizarre cultural issues we had with ownership was that I couldn't really celebrate victories because they'd be challenged pretty heavily. So it takes me a minute to sort of dig back and think, where were those? But I can start in college as we're selling water, a water company, and everyone's like, no, you can't do it. It was failing. We bought it, and me and three other guys turned it around, and all of a sudden we've got more beer money than we ever thought we'd need. And so, that was awesome. And we were excited. We're covering all kinds of costs that we otherwise didn't think we could. And I was a sophomore, junior, senior in college. It was awesome. So
walk me through this for a second. You're buying a failing water company. Is this bottled water? Like you're doing delivery, like
5-gallon
corporate delivery. Yep.
And so
you're going to buy the system that's currently, pardon the pun, underwater. And so you're buying it at a discount, and you're like, hey man, we gotta fix the systems and actually create the right clientele. You got to do some things. Well, and there's three of you. So do you divide and conquer? How do you overcome it?
Yeah, it was interesting. You start with what's working and keep doing that, and then really get organized is what we did. And so we really didn't have to buy it. We more or less acquired what was there. And then just spent a lot of time getting our plan straight. And so we were, finding the right customers and adding customers and growing sales. Thankfully, we had a good sales guy who was fearless. And then it was, all right, what's our, building out processes for delivery. And at that point, it was a lot of paperwork. And so how do we manage everything and ensure that our customers are getting the service they deserve, because water is water in the end. So yeah, it was some of those steps. And then in the back end, it was the accounting, it was the legal and trying to navigate that part, taxes and you name it. But yeah, we all sort of kind of wandered through that together and screwed up a bunch of stuff. But in the end, it was generally went pretty well, and had a great experience with it.
So let's talk to the folks about that. Like the business is losing, you're going to lose, you've acquired it. Great. There's not a huge downside because hey, we just acquired it. Like it didn't cost us way out of pocket. But you want to build a winner, right? Now, did the three of you all do that? Did you source talent to take everything? Did you guys want to do the paperwork, or did you find people that could actually do it and outsource it?
Yeah, in that case, we did most of it. We outsourced the legal and accounting, but yeah, it's not how I do it now. But yeah, I'm all about who, not how, and finding the expert that loves doing everything and always delegating that. So, but yeah, in that case, it was our time, our sweat equity, literally, just to get things going. So, yeah.
Yeah, you just mentioned Dan Sullivan. Got a good book out there called Who Not How, right?
Yep.
So walk us through that. Like you said, that's a mantra of yours. Who not how. Why is that? And that's, by the way, funny, because in my forum this week, as an entrepreneur organization member, one of our fellow members mentioned, like, man, this is a great book. And I was like, oh, I got to check it out, right?
Yeah.
So walk me through that statement. Who, not how. What does that mean to you?
Yeah. So I'm a strategic coach client, just starting my third year. But yeah, it's find the expert or find the person who likes doing the task or the process and put them in that seat. And from a leadership perspective, I always thought, how much can I delegate to people that really want to do this? And my personal desire is always to be doing something new. And so get in there, figure it out, pass it off, or get in there, figure out we need to do it and pass it off. But it's finding the pros and always building a better team than what you have, as we sort of talked about earlier. But like, I actually was talking with someone yesterday and they said, well, we've got this chance to bring in someone great, but they're a lot more expensive. And I'm not sure there's an appetite for that on the leadership team. I said, look, you can stay where you are. You'll be what you are. Or if you want to make these jumps, you got to start playing with bigger players. So just, you got to decide what you want to do. And so it's finding the people who know how to get you to the next, get what you need done or get you to the next level, if that's what you need to get done, and investing in them, because sometimes it's hard to show an ROI up front, but usually they should in 6 to 12 months. So
yeah, I've seen different stats on this, but when you talk about who, not how, I had a great show probably early last year, with a young man who talked about just hiring the best, right? And he was talking about the fact that a top performer will outperform their peers 4 to 8 times.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, listen, if somebody costs you $100,000 in that position and you hire the best, they're going to cost you like 125. Like, it's not going to be like, oh, I got to pay them $350, but 350 grand. But here's the reality. If the 100,000 person is responsible for bringing in a gross of $1 million,
right,
they're going to outperform them 4 to 8. You're going to pay 125 for someone who's going to bring $4 to $8 million of value. Like, think about that number, man. Because that's what we're talking about. The who, because these are game changing folks who make a difference in environments that are just uncanny.
Well, I even think, like, to the simple level and having an admin to cover planning and scheduling, the basics. So I can spend my time doing, working with leadership teams. That's most efficient. I'm without one now, and I'm struggling because my output's significantly impacted. But yeah, it's in all kinds of roles. I use it at home, and why am I doing this in the yard when who's the who should manage the whole yard?
Yep.
And I think who's the who should manage the whole house, so I don't have to pick up a screwdriver. Not that I don't mind doing that, but I'd rather not. So.
Well, it's often not the best use of our time, right? And that's not to say like, oh, you can't pick up a screwdriver and do something. No, like I can do it. And if it's going to take 10 minutes, this is well worth our time. We don't need to call somebody.
I do it, not proactive. I want someone else being proactive about it. So.
Yeah. That's a good point. We're right back to loss of value, right? Loss of value, loss of time, loss of energy because of that. Man, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. If Andy, last question, if you had, well, maybe the last question, if you had to tell somebody right now who's going through some challenges, man, like this is a tough time, like they're not finding their place, they're not finding the team they want to be on, they're stuck in an organization that maybe they got the wrong players. What do you tell somebody that's down right now? What do you tell them to get back on track? Is there something that you think would be formidable?
For my experience, I'd say make a change sooner rather than later. I waited too long to make a change when I was in that sort of framework or mental headspace, but also make changes, keep going, make changes. Don't settle and continue to look for more opportunities, because there's tons out there, but at times I've been blinded to it. I don't know how or why, but once I sort of got out of my line of thinking, all of a sudden it was, oh man, there's so many opportunities. I got to really focus on what I want to do and of these. So I think you got to really maybe rip the Band-Aid or make a big change to get yourself out of a bad situation or not a good situation so that you can find the right one. And I say the same thing when coaching leadership teams into, you got to move people along. You don't like firing anyone, but they're going to be better off somewhere else. Might not be the first step or the second step, and they'll be challenged in the transition, but in the end, they'll be better off. And so you don't feel like you have to stick with people, because people generally don't change that much. But if they're not working, find another role or help them be happier by finding another role for them outside of your company.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's huge. I think the other side of that's so important is when you talk about that, it's about taking action, right? Do something. I think when you say, and I like this, when you say, make a change, I think it's okay to make a change and have it not be the perfect change. Right. Like you took an action, and found out maybe it wasn't perfect and didn't do it. It's not permanent, man. Like you made a change, you can make another change. And I think this is one of the problems I run into when I work with leadership teams. They're fearful about making a decision. And I'm like, hey man, we can test this thing for 90 days. And if it doesn't, we can go back to X, or we could take, Teresa's idea for Y, because, we don't think that's the best position today, but maybe after 90 days, it looks a little different. And Teresa's right on, even though the majority doesn't agree with it today. Let's take an action, make that change in the process, and we'll just, proof test that process for a while. And if it's not it, it's not it. We could be okay.
And I think you go back to the point of, having a good plan. And so that's I think that was my other challenges. I didn't have my plan aligned with my future of acquiring Beer Nutz and going from there. When that wasn't an option anymore, I had to make new plans, and all of a sudden my plans got bigger and better. And I was like, man, I don't even want anything to do with that place anymore. Like I can do more and more in my strike zone of what I like to do and what I'm good at, and achieve even greater goals than I would have had I stayed on that track, or had that track turned out how I thought it was supposed to. So just make sure you have a clear plan on what you want, and then you can work backwards from there. So
love that. That's a great advice. Last thing, if, in times of challenge, in times of like, man, you're discouraged, you got to pivot, you got to do something different during that dark time of frustration. And I hear it from you, like, it's in your voice of like, hey man, I had this vision. I thought this is how it's going to be, and it didn't turn out how you thought it would go. Like, I get it.
Yep.
And so, but that's the easy thing to say out loud. You got to go home every night and go, what the heck, man? Like, this isn't how it was supposed to be. And your wife's like going, hey, so how's this going to work? And you're like, well, I don't know. And so is there something you go to? Is there something like you read? Is there something that can level you out, that gets you kind of back into like, hey man, I know where I'm supposed to go?
The best thing I always say is exercise. I mean, going for a run, I think about my worst moments and like, I'm frustrated and don't know what's next. Go for a run, go for a long run, go slow, but just like, work your frustration out, or whatever exercise you need to do, but just do it and do a lot of it to sort of wear yourself out and sort of reset after that. And then it's, then for me, it's make a plan and set a new goal and don't make it complex, and start working towards that one. And on the way there, you're going to reassess everything, but get down to the basics and set
Keep
one
it
goal
simple.
and go from there, because there's
I love that.
a lot of other stuff that can interfere with it all the time. So,
let's keep it simple, folks. Don't try to recreate the wheel. And I love, one of the things, like here, I'm talking to Andy Shirk, one of the best coaches in the country. And he talks about hiring a coach, right? Like, hey, the best in the world have a coach, gang. Like, get out and get people who do all sorts of things for you. They will motivate you. They will hold you accountable. They will stress test all sorts of visions, all sorts of thoughts, all sorts of plans with you. And it'll narrow your simplicity so much. It'll help you prioritize unbelievably. If you're not sure, give Andy Shirk a call. I'm telling you, it'll happen. So, So for everybody out there, thank you for joining us on another great and fabulous Winners Find a Way show. To my special guest, Andy Shirk. Thank you so much, Andy, for joining me. So awesome to actually spend some time, man. Really learned a lot today, and thankful for the time. For everybody else, Winners Find a Way every Friday at 12:30 p.m. Eastern and 9:30 a.m. Pacific. Join us then on Leadershipity YouTube channel, LinkedIn Live, Facebook Live, and you can always find our podcasts on all the networks. Organizations come to me all the time with challenges of execution and communication with their teams. We help build a system through Bloom Growth and software that gives them simplification and prioritization. I teach, facilitate, and coach these organizations to literally double their value. If you're interested in gaining your individual and organizational growth, please email me at trent@leadershipity.com or click the link below and book a 15-minute call on my Calendly.